Durham College's alumni in the pit. My name is Jonathan Zagrodnik. I'm a second-year student in Durham College's Broadcasting for Radio and Contemporary Media program. And I am very, very excited to be here hosting this event where we're going to take a look at two very, very well-accomplished students who have graduated from Durham College. As a student, I'm often wondering what's next, what's the next step, and I'm sure many of us are always thinking, what do I do after college to start my career? What's that transitional period? So we are very thankful to have these two gentlemen with us here today to help kind of ease any concerns that we might have. Before we get to them, though, I would like to introduce our college president, Don Lavisa, who would like to say a few words.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody. What can I add to that but say we've got a couple of really cool guys here with great stories, and they went right from their programs, placement to employment. And that's what you want to hear as students. How do I go from that placement for graduation and get that dream job? And they've got some great stories, everything from John working on KitKat and the CFL ad campaigns, to Brent here working on a sci-fi project, rLoop, about traveling at the speed of sound in a little tube going across the desert. So really happy to have both of them here to share their stories with you. And at the end, you can ask them questions, ask them any questions, ask them hard questions. But it's great to have you guys here and look forward to your stories. So back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Don. All right, I would just also like to say, any students attending this or any other backpack to briefcase events, if you register at our alumni staff table over there, you will have the chance to win $100. Just make sure you stick around for the whole show, though, because if you're not around when we do the draw, you can't win the prize. But anyway, without further ado, let's go to our two guests here. Now, I am going to have to read some notes for you guys, but I think that's probably a good sign. You've done so much that I can't even memorize it all. It's good, right? So first up, we've got John Hotz. He graduated 2008 from our Advertising and Marketing Communications program. He is the Associate Creative Director at OneMethod, which is a mostly digital creative team, right? And he has been responsible for several award-winning campaigns for companies such as Delicio, Haagen-Dazs, Coors Light, World Wildlife Fund, Smarties, KitKat Canada, and Sweet Jesus. After he tells us his stories, we're going to be moving on to Brent Lessard. He was the top of his class for Mechanical Engineering Technology, graduated 2014. He's the technical coordinator for international leak detection, and he co-founded rLoop, which is a team of 140 people from 14 different countries that are working to revolutionize transportation. So basically, we've got Mad Men and we've got Star Trek. So that's pretty exciting. All right, now we know everyone's going to have lots of questions, queries, concerns, all the Q and C words, but we're going to ask that you hold them off until the very end after both of our guests have spoken. So without further ado, let's hear it for John Hotz.
Hey guys, John Hotz. I'm an Associate Creative Director at a company called OneMethod. It's essentially a design and advertising firm, and it's my job. I work on the creative team. It's my job to basically come up with campaign ideas for advertisers, any of our clients, or small businesses, and execute them. And it's specifically kind of my job to take care of anything that's sort of visual as a part of that campaign or that communication. I graduated in 2008, as mentioned, from the Advertising and Marketing Communications program here at Durham. Woo! Since then I've gone on and done a whole series of things. I'm just going to check my notes. So I'll tell you a little bit about my experience at Durham, a little bit what I'm doing now, and I may share a couple of what I think might be my biggest failures to date and how I'm kind of learning from them. That might be interesting. Yeah, when I started here at Durham, I had some past experience in the design world from high school, and so I knew that I kind of wanted to be in the design world, specifically in advertising. So when I started in the program, I think from day one I was already sort of honing those skills for that 3-year period. Whereas I think some of the other students were kind of able to explore and figure out where they fit into advertising. And there's so many opportunities within the ad world. And I think any other industry, you can get into like project management, you can get into the creative side, the business side, dealing with clients, et cetera, et cetera. So there is really, and the ad program here does offer a big breadth of learning across the entire industry. So I was able to, I think, kind of focus in on all that stuff from day one, knowing what I wanted to do. And it kind of goes without saying that I wasn't the greatest at doing all that other business stuff and dealing with clients. Definitely more creative. And fast forward those 3 years, they were a lot of fun. When it came time to getting an internship, I didn't really know how to do that. I mean, if someone tells you you need to go get an internship as part of finishing your diploma, you don't simply just go out and get an internship. You kind of have to plan for it. A lot of hard work goes into your resume and, in my case, a portfolio to share with creative directors that I wouldn't be embarrassed to show. But along the way, the biggest, I think, people that I turned to were my friends around me who were also going through the same thing, and the faculty here. So Don Salter, the director of the, let's see right there, director of the ad program here, helped us kind of figure out how to approach that. And she actually set us up with, me and the copywriter who was out of my program, set us up with an interview with someone that she knew from the industry, because she had just taken over the ad program recently at the time, and she was kind of fresh out of the ad industry, still had a lot of those connections. And so she set us up with someone she knew, and I remember we stayed up really late. I don't know why we were staying up really late, trying to get our thoughts straight or like sort out our portfolio to share. I have no idea. But I remember the next day was a bit groggy, and the meeting was just terrible. But somehow we got an internship, and that kind of launched me into what I'm doing now. So during my internship, I was an art director intern, and learned a lot. I think the two kind of biggest things that I take from that internship, I learned on day one. So when I first showed up, our people manager, our creative director at the time, he had sort of this rule book that we had to abide by when we were there as interns. And I think there was 8 rules. I can only really remember 2 of them, and they've stuck with me. Number 1 was check your ego at the door, and number 2 was ask all of the dumb questions. And what I think that really means is no one really likes to work with a jerk, and no one knows everything about what you're doing. So if you have a question or you don't know, turn to someone who does, and just learn something. And I've kept those 2 things carried with me throughout my entire career. Coming out of that internship, it was kind of funny how I got my first job. So the creative director, it was like the last day of my internship, it was a Friday, it was a slow day at work, and we were kind of hanging out, just probably taking in the internet. And the creative director walked into the pit and he goes, "Hey Hots, what are you doing on Monday?" And I said, "I think I might be hunting for a job." And he goes, "Why don't you come in on Monday and we'll figure out paperwork sometime in the week?" And I said, "Okay." And that was how I got hired as an art director in the industry. And so since then, it's pretty customary in the ad world to kind of hop around to different businesses and take in different experiences at different companies. So in my 9-ish years in the industry, I think I've worked at 4 different companies, which is just kind of standard. Across those different companies, I've worked on various clients, some of which the work you're seeing over here. I won't get into any of the projects, but if you guys have any questions after, I'd be happy to dive deep into something. But basically, now I come up with kind of crazy ideas at work, and we make them. So we do anything from developing websites to apps to developing TV campaigns or social and digital kind of multi-channel communications or activations, and all for the sole purpose of getting our clients more attention or engagement through who they want to communicate with. And then, so in that 9-ish years, a lot of things have happened. The most recent was I was nominated and chosen as one of Marketing Magazine's top 30 under 30 in the fall. So I think I was in the October or November issue of that magazine, which is kind of crazy. Someone is holding it up there. And so that's kind of it to date. Some of the clients that I've worked with, we did the brand identity for Sweet Jesus, which is a pretty widely known soft serve ice cream shop in Toronto. We did the rebrand for the Canadian Football League to kind of modernize the brand, add a little bit of timelessness and target a younger demographic, as well as various other campaigns for Kit Kat or Delicio, things that kind of we tried to break the internet with. In 2 seconds, I just want to take a second and acknowledge that failure is okay. So you're going to go out into the world and you're going to make some mistakes, and you should make those mistakes and learn from them. I tried to think about what looking back at my 2 biggest, what I'll call my failures might be. One is I told myself that I was going to write a typeface 5 years ago, and for anyone in the room who is not a design geek like me, that is a font. So I told myself I would write and design a font for myself for everyday use and kind of put that into the world. I have not done that. I have not even started that. So I consider that a bit of a failure. And I also wish that I traveled more when I was young. So if you have the opportunity to travel and see the world, you should do it. Every time I travel, it opens my eyes. Yeah, so start and finish the things you want to do and see the world. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much, John. It's quite the portfolio you've got there, man. It's impressive. All right, let's turn it over to Brent now. Ladies and gentlemen, Brent Lessard.
Good morning, everybody. I did not write any notes. I'm likely to ramble, and I apologize for that in advance. My name's Brent. I graduated 2014 here from the Mechanical Engineering Technology program. Fantastic program, great faculty, great community there, a lot of opportunities presented to work on some very cool projects. And one of the neat things about college education experience was you get to apply a lot of the theoretical aspects, which was a big appeal for me when I applied here as a mature student. I went to I have somewhat of a varied education. I went to a classical musical school for 10 years. Following that, I actually went to visual arts, but quickly found it was a hobby, and it wasn't something I wanted to pursue necessarily as a career. After some experiences, I did motorcycle mechanics, I raced karts for a long while. I decided I wanted to get into engineering. So I came to Durham College as a mature student. The summer before I graduated, I got a placement at a firm in Ajax called International Leak Detection, and what they did was they had an innovative approach to integrity testing, basically, of roof envelope systems. And when I came in, we were starting a smart building monitoring system. So I was able to sort of get involved early in that, and was able to influence the design and implementation of the system. It's largely applied now to smart building monitoring systems, for mission critical sites. So data centers, hospitals, clean rooms, stuff like that, where you want to catch an issue early before it develops. A year or two after, I'm still with that firm now, 4 years. A year or two after, I co-founded a crowdsourced engineering firm. It started on, are there anybody familiar with the Hyperloop concept? 1, 2, a couple, all right. Basically in 2013, Elon Musk put out a white paper where he outlined a system, a ground-based transportation system. One of the issues that he was addressing was the same methods of transportation were available to our great-grandparents that are available to us today. So it's plane, train, car, and since then there's only been incremental improvements to those systems. But he was reimagining what if we were to design a ground-based transportation system today. He apparently came up with the concept while sitting in traffic in LA. If anybody's been, it's hard to really relate. When you say traffic's bad, you go, oh yeah, oh yeah. But until you're actually there and experience it, it is horrible in LA. So he was popping back and forth between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It's normally about a 5 to 6 hour drive. It often takes us 12 to 13 hours due to traffic and other conditions. So the system is basically a tube. Inside the tube, you can control the environment, so we can optimize it for our purposes. Namely, creating a partial vacuum inside the tube. So we're eliminating a lot of the air resistance and the energy that's lost there. And then we have pods or capsules for passengers or cargo. It's levitated inside the tube. Because we levitate, we're eliminating that rolling resistance and energy losses there. So the result is you can travel at incredible speeds with very little energy input. It's actually the route from San Francisco to LA. If we line the tube with solar panels, it will generate more power than we'll actually require to operate. So 2013, he released this concept. Nothing really happened. Frustrated by that, in 2015, SpaceX announced a competition open to independent and student teams. And I happen to be active on the SpaceX subreddit. I don't know how many Redditors we have here, presumably a number. Someone put a post up saying, hey, we've got a great community here. There's nothing eliminating us from participating in the competition. We should form a team. And we said, yeah, you know, that's a good idea. So we threw up a spreadsheet to sign up. And it snowballed. We had hundreds of people from all over the world saying, I would love to contribute. Here's my background. I'm a student. I'd love to be involved. I've got some money. I'd throw some money in. That was 2 years ago. Today we have over 1,000 people on the platform. We've had a successful crowdfunding campaign. Excuse me. Our design, which we pitched to SpaceX and Tesla engineers, won the best non-student design. There were over 1,800 initial design entrants. Various milestones whittled down to 140 or so who went to present in Texas last January. We presented, we got the Best Non-Student Design Award and the okay to continue to build our prototype and to test it on a 1 mile track. So we spent the last year refining and building our prototype. You can see some images there. Got a few partnerships with companies like TE Connectivity, who is formerly Tyco Electronics, and Soylent, if anybody's aware, a very cool company. They do a meal replacement beverage. We also entered our concept for a Hyperloop ecosystem in a contest with an organization called Build Earth Live, and they hold sort of rapid, short design competitions. And we won an award there as well for design drama and excitement. So they flew some of the team out to Dubai. We presented it to the Crown Prince there, and we won an award there as well. And then just last weekend, I just came back, we went to test our pod. So from those over 1,800 initial entrants, 27 showed up with the pod. And of them, they awarded 5 awards, and we won one of them, the Pod Innovation Award, which they recognized our pod as demonstrating all a suite of technology that would be required if you're scaling up to a full-scale system, as well as the method in which we organize the team. So that's one of the aspects that I worked on personally on the team. I was the project manager, largely involved in the organizational and administrative side of keeping thousands of people engaged, being able to contribute in a meaningful way to the project, and then meeting all the deadlines and requirements that were quite aggressive from SpaceX's side. So yeah, I've just returned from that awesome experience, and we're pressing forward with our prototype. And we also think there's a lot of value in the organization that we developed, and we're looking at exponential, innovative technologies to apply the concept to as well. And that's about brings us up to date.
All right, thank you very much. So we should be expecting like the Futurama space pods well before the year 3000.
I thought we'd have it by now.
All right, well, let's hear it again there for John and Brent, guys. Really appreciate you guys coming back to talk to us. Now, it's your guys' turn. So we're going to now open the floor up to questions. And sometimes, asking a question can be a little daunting, quite a large crowd. So we will be enticing anyone who has a question with some free DC swag. I see a question over here. All right, what's your question?
So my question's for John. I was just wondering, you've obviously worked in the ad agency for quite some time now, and with the rise of, say, streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, that kind of thing, do you think we're almost going to see less advertisements in the future? And especially now because we're dealing so much more with digital media as opposed to print media, we're going to see less and less ads, and do you think that's going to have an effect on the ad agency for someone like myself who's slowly getting into it?
Really good question. I agree, that is a huge, I think, trend that the ad industry faces. We've had so many clients ask us how to break into Netflix, and it's just, you can't. They don't offer that unless you're making your own show. And no one would watch a show about frozen pizza, for example. So, yeah, it is a bit tricky. I think eventually those platforms will open themselves up to advertising at some level, either through the interface or something that is like a YouTube pre-roll kind of thing, that is just like before you're, in between your marathon shows, it's like quick 15 seconds. But yeah, it's to be determined on that. I think the same thing kind of applies to a lot of the social media that we've got going on. Like, there's always new platforms breaking out, and some of them monetize that really well through advertisement, and some don't want it at all. And it's kind of interesting to kind of sit back and observe how that shakes down. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi, I got a question. What would you say is the most challenging to reach your target audience exactly? Like, how exactly do you reach out to your target audience? And what's the most challenging to really grab their attention?
So the most challenging thing about reaching somebody? Well, it depends, right? Like, it depends who you're trying to reach. So, if you're trying to reach an older group, typically you're working with more traditional things. There's a lot of, there's like a rising population of Gen Xers who are on Facebook now. So Facebook is a convenient place to reach them. And it is relatively inexpensive to a degree, and you can heavily target. Trying to reach people like yourselves is actually the most challenging because you have really short attention spans. I can see most of you not even paying attention to me right now. But you guys are sort of this elusive, younger millennial group that most advertising companies that are out there in the market right now are trying to figure out how to communicate to you and talk with you. Because there's so many new platforms and channels and apps and things that you guys are into, like the Netflix of the world, and you have so many entertainment options, it can be the most challenging to reach you guys. But in terms of how we do, we usually we'll work with our media company to figure out the best places to reach a certain demo. And sometimes it's all about just making a bunch of noise and coming up with something splashy that a lot of people hear about.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else?
in the front.
This question for Brent, sorry. You were talking about, I don't know if you said it in your speech, but you were talking about your tube. And you said, I was just wondering, what is the motive of propulsion for the tube? I don't know if you mentioned it, but how does it travel? Does it travel on the track? Does it travel on the road? I didn't get it.
There are different approaches to it. We use an active magnetic levitation system. So we have what we actually call hover engines. It's basically a Hallback array of magnets. So they're arranged in a particular format so that the magnetic field is intensified on one side of the magnets and minimized on the other. And then what we do is we rotate that at a controlled speed. And when we're on top of conductive substrate, ideally it's copper, but copper is very expensive. So we've been testing with aluminum. Aluminum has about 60% the conductivity as copper. Basically, we can induce similar eddy currents in the substrate as we rotate these engines. And as a result, the engine will levitate off of that. And then what we can do is control the rotation, but we can also gimbal the engine and control the magnetic drag. So as a result, we can manipulate the engine in a certain way, and we can generate thrust to propel forward. We can manipulate it the other way and create a drag force or braking. But we can also, we have omnidirectional control. So while we're in place, we can rotate and translate on the spot, which is pretty incredible. So that's all we were using when we were testing. We only had a 1 mile tube, and we're trying to achieve the highest speed possible. So what we had was a mechanical pusher at the beginning, which was basically a Tesla Model S that was stripped down with a bracket on the front to mount to the rear of our pod, and we would accelerate it very, very quickly at the beginning so we could reach a high speed. Basically, in 1 mile, it was about 22 seconds from the beginning to the end. It was about 10 to 11 seconds acceleration, 2 seconds of coasting, and then braking. And we used a very similar system for braking, was an eddy current brake system. Now, there are passive system as well to levitate. It's the same idea, except you're not rotating those magnets, they're stationary. And that's how a lot of traditional maglev trains operate. So they have a mechanical thrust to achieve a certain speed, and once they reach that speed, the magnets will levitate. So our active system is imagining the same sort of concept, but if a maglev train were instead on a circular track, and it reached that top speed and stayed there, and then we scaled that down into about a 12-inch diameter engine. We had 8 of them on our prototype pod. Very, very power hungry. As a result, everything on our pod was self-designed and manufactured, including the battery system. There was nothing commercially available to suit our power needs, so we had to design and build our own battery packs, which was a lot of work, a lot of IP generated, and a lot of interest from other peripheral companies who could use that.
Okay, Brent. Now simplify it for the non-techies.
Okay.
You're basically going to shoot a bullet through a tube is what you're doing, right?
It's a plane without wings that hovers
Through a tube.
through a tube
All right.
with little to no air. It's basically the same atmosphere as Mars. So there's little to no air resistance. And the reason we only do a partial vacuum is achieving a complete vacuum in a tube stretching hundreds of miles is incredibly difficult and very expensive. But if we can say we only want about a sixth the regular atmosphere, it's much easier to maintain if there are leaks or seal issues. The commercially available vacuum pumps can overcome that.
And you want a person to sit in there.
We want many people to sit in there. We often say it's as fast or faster than a plane and as convenient as a train. So it would be an on-demand service. It wouldn't be scheduled to departure time. You would show up, hop in a pod. For example, you could get here to Montreal in about 22 minutes at full speed. And what it's really about is enabling change behavior. So you can, in theory, work in Toronto, but live in Montreal, and your commute would be shorter than it would be if you were living in Oshawa and working in Toronto. And then you could go for dinner in Ottawa, visit some museums, and then fly back home in 20 to 30 minutes.
I find it really interesting that the Tesla Model S was used to propel the rLoop during the tests. I think it's kind of serendipitous, and will make it probably a really good, interesting fact in the history books.
We got a question up front.
Hi, my question is for John. Actually, I have a question for both of you, but I'll start with John. Do you have a favorite Super Bowl commercial?
From this past year? Put me on the spot. What one stood out to me? I loved the Stranger Things teaser. That was cool. In terms of breaking through, there was it 8 Lumber? Had this really weird kind of TV, it was a TV spot, obviously, that it ended up actually crashing their website because so many people were going to their site to figure out who they were. I think that might be the most successful one.
I have to be that guy. I don't watch TV.
That's okay. And for you, Brent, I hear Elon Musk is digging tunnels under.
Yes.
Is this related to your project or not?
Potentially.
Potentially. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
So Brent, this is for you. This is a project I've followed ever since Elon Musk announced it quite a number of years ago. How would you view getting something like this approved with the speed of how things get approved here in this country? Just take a look at the Scarborough subway and how that works.
That's definitely a major challenge for the project. There's definitely a lot more interest, let's say, from Eastern Europe and Asia than there is locally. Especially, there are certain governments who are investing heavily in infrastructure for their country, and rather than sort of committing to existing technology, they're looking at new and innovative ways to sort of leapfrog that high-speed rail system. The Hyperloop should also be, in theory, considerably less expensive than those systems. But what we really need, I mean, our team is focused on the technological aspect of it, but what you really need is someone who will take that chance, see the value that's there, and make that first initial agreement. There's lots of talk in Dubai currently, which is a pretty it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place. They've got a lot of money, and they're willing to spend it on whatever's new and cool and innovative. So there's a lot going on there in terms of technology and innovation.
All right, thank you very much.
This is my question for John. How hard would you say, or how important would you say it is to try and keep up with trends and try and follow trends, especially when you're talking about trying to capture that millennial audience who's very trend happy and meme happy? How challenging is that, and how do you go about doing that?
It's super challenging, but it is very important. It's part of my job to understand kind of where certain people are in their life stages and understanding what challenges they face and what kind of problems they are facing, or what their need states are, and to kind of pair that with where they are online or what they are doing in the world, the entertainment they're kind of consuming. You take the sort of cultural trends against the interaction or digital trends. You kind of cross-reference those and hopefully find something sweet in the middle where you can kind of create an idea inside a place or a platform where they're kind of native. But it is super important, and it is becoming more and more challenging for brands to keep up. It takes a certain kind of advertiser to jump into a new space. There's a lot of brands that are hopping into Snapchat these days because of obvious opportunities that have become available to them. But back in the day, before advertisers weren't really allowed in there were very few brands that were hopping in and sort of hacking the space. And so I think brands who can get in there and be the first will have probably the most, more benefits for them versus adopting late and being kind of late to that party. But yes, it is very important.
Thank you very much.
What year did both of you graduate? What year?
What year? I graduated in 2008. So quite a while ago. It's almost a decade since I've had to fight people off for parking in the South Lot. No, I'm just kidding. They set me up today.
I was more recent. I was 2014.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions?
This one's for Brent. There's a lot of talk about climate change, and in a recent documentary, Elon Musk is talking about how many gigafactories it would take for the entire world to run on renewable energy. So what do you think is the role of commodity engineers in making climate change a thing of the past?
I think there's a reluctance among the majority of the population to adopt sort of innovative technologies. I think there are a lot of solutions out there for existing issues that contribute to climate change, and there are certain industries I would keep my eyes on in terms of that. Transportation is a big one. Energy storage is huge and wildly undervalued currently. I think it would be, if that's, for us, what we found is you have to find your passion, and if that's a major concern of yours, find out where you can get involved, get active in the community locally, surround yourself with the right people, and you really have to really apply yourself. So you must be passionate about it. It's got to be something you want to stick through, and you have to have that drive to, all your free time, devote towards that. Raise the awareness, and really, I think the focus. I'm a futurist. I focus largely on innovation, new technologies, disruptive technologies. Stuff that can have an exponential impact, so we focus on stuff that's not an incremental improvement. We're not talking about automating cars or self-driving or electric cars. We're talking about forget the car entirely. Here we can do something much more energy efficient, sustainable, and can actually generate more power than required to operate. So that's our approach to making a positive impact on a global scale.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, cool. We're going to turn to Krista, who has been monitoring our social media feed. Do we have any questions from social media?
Yes. We have a couple here. So the first one is for Brent. Between working and your work with the rLoop, how do you manage your time?
I grossly neglect my family and my social life. No, it's I'm fortunate at ILD in my position. They know the work that I'm doing outside of my day job, and they were quite accepting of it, providing it didn't impact my normal job. I have a very understanding wife and daughter. It's been 2 years of virtually every spare waking minute was rLoop. I mean, we have a huge community, and it's really all of them as well. So one of the things I said when we got our award was, you know, a lot of thanks is owed to the support from family, from friends, around those people. Because I know what I was like to be around for the past 2 years. I can only imagine what everybody else was like. So it's definitely a challenge, but like I was saying, if it's something you're passionate about, you've got that drive, it doesn't feel like a job, it doesn't feel like work, it's something you want to do, you want to make an impact, and this is how you believe you can do it, so it was really a joy. It's a joy.
Oh, that's amazing, thank you. And for you, John, what was your favorite ad campaign to work on, and why?
So, my favorite project wasn't necessarily an ad campaign, but my favorite project to be a part of was changing the face of this CFL, the Canadian Football League, because just how much sort of longevity that will have and sustain. It theoretically is the logo for the league for the rest of their existence. Like it kind of is going to ingrain itself into Canadian culture. Whereas with a lot of our projects, sometimes we're only in market for 2 or 3 months doing this one splashy little thing, and the effects of that can be seen for a longer period of time. But changing the face of an organization with an outlook toward the future is kind of an exciting thing to be a part of. So that would have to be my favorite project.
Thank you very much. Are there any other final questions for John or Brent?
This is coming from our Instagram Live viewer. For John, how effective is using social media platforms for advertisers?
How effective do I think social media platforms are for advertisers? I think they're very effective. They're really good at targeting. I'm going to talk to the phone. They're really good at targeting and finding a specific person in a specific place that you might be wanting to communicate with or engage with. I think advertisers sort of need to also approach that a little bit lightly. They need to, you need to figure out how to communicate within each of the platforms. It's very easy for us to fall into this trap where we're saying kind of the same thing in the same way across different social places. But each of them have their own sort of language and way that you need to approach them, just given how people interact with them. But I think they are effective. It's possible that one day everyone will be like, hey, I don't really want these advertisers in my feed anymore, I'm going to find something new. Which I think, fast forward 10, 20 years from now, that could be something the world faces, and specifically the advertising world. If that answers your question, Instagram listener.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Let's have another round of applause for John and Brent, eh? Before we take off, we're going to quickly do our draw to see who won the $100.